on. Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to revolutionize your customer experience and the secrets to building a successful at-home team. Let's get this show started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Business Bros, are you ready to redefine customer support and embrace the remote work revolution? Well, then today we're diving deep into the world of at-home customer care with the visionary behind Unparalleled Remote Solutions. She's a pioneer, let's try that one again. She's been pioneering flexible, secure, and efficient customer service models for almost a decade, empowering those who work from home and transforming businesses across the US and Canada. And she's here to share her expertise and innovative approaches. So get ready to be inspired by none other than the Miss Courtney Meyers. All right, Courtney, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
All right, let's do this thing. First question I always ask is that what is it that you do for a living? So everybody who comes on the show is here to promote something, to sell something, to share something. What is that for you?
Yeah, so I am the co-CEO of Omni Interactions, and we provide, work from home customer service solutions for companies all over the globe, leveraging the gig economy. Yep.
All right. So I know that was big during the COVID era, and I know people wanted to come back, but there's certain industries that kind of need that at-home feel. I think there's certain people who just have to have that sort of job. So who's the ideal candidate for this type of work?
So it's most of the people that do gig work for us they are stay-at-home moms, they are semi-retired, maybe they're a person with disabilities. We work with a lot of military spouses who need a lot of flexibility and they need that job to be portable so they can move with their active duty spouse. So it's really people with lots of great, backgrounds, education, experience, skills that, want to find a way to do gig work from the comfort of their home.
And let's face it, we want that flexibility. That's kind of the idea behind all the new technologies to give us the time to do what we want to do. Might as well work the way we want to work as well. Tell me a little bit about your journey. What led you to start to specialize in in-home service care?
Yeah, it's been kind of a wild journey for me. So I was actually a medic in the Army. When I was younger, I still loved the outdoors, but I ultimately joined the Army when I was in college. Thought I wanted to pursue a career in medicine. Spent some time as an Army medic. I spent a year in Iraq and immediately realized I would prefer to work from the comfort at that point in time of an air-conditioned office. So I kind of went guardrail to guardrail. I started a master's in business, and I actually ended up working for a company that was one of the original work from home companies. This was back in, 2011. They were started in the early 2000s, really pioneering this concept of, work from home customer service. And so I kind of fell into it, to be honest. So I started there. It ended up being a really cool journey for me to learn about, to start my true professional career at a company that was pushing the envelope with this concept of work where you want to work. And you can do these things from home. I mean, do you need to sit in a cubicle in a call center to answer calls? Absolutely not is the answer to that question. And so after a few years in that world, that company was ultimately bought by a large, BPO that does call centers all over the globe. And that large corporate life was not for me. So ultimately I left. I started my own company, doing consulting and some other things, mostly focused around recruiting and training. And then, an old colleague of mine started Omni, said, "Hey, join me." And I rolled my company into Omni. And we really started Omni Interactions with the idea that we know we can do this differently and we can do it better. That we've seen, I'm going to say, the old ways, the legacy ways, and those, it doesn't have to be that way. And so that was back in 2016, well before COVID, that we just thought the gig economy is booming. And that is the right way to deliver customer service to companies. Leverage people that want to be gig workers. It doesn't have to be employees sitting in a cubicle in a call center in, small town USA.
No, but they can still get the work done, and that's kind of the key there is you're still going to get the productivity that you're looking for. It's just how you structure it is going to be different. And I think there then in lies the problem, right? How do you set up a successful remote customer service team? How does one go from, hey, you know what, this is something that I definitely want to do, but to do it correctly? Fortunately for you, you found a partner that was in the same space, and it's always great to work with people who kind of push you. You have that creative back and forth. But if someone wants to get started in this, how do they do that successfully?
So, I mean, one, it's great to partner with an expert, right? I mean, one of the many things we do for our clients is we can help them move down this journey. They can learn a lot of best practices from us from an outsource standpoint. But the reality is, in this day and age, it's so much easier with cloud-based technologies. So, in the olden days, it was very complicated to set up, phone systems, all of those things. Today, I mean, you can Google cloud-based phone system and about 400 of them pop up. Most of them have professional services that'll help you get that up and running so that you've got the IVR, right? That directs calls, press 1, press 2, press 3, all of those things. And so, from there, then you start to look at other cloud-based technologies. You can look at LMSs, learning systems. You can, leverage Slack or Teams or any of the many, chats, kind of chat platforms to chat with the teams out there. And then it's really just about setting expectations, training, make sure the team gets trained properly, set expectations around how they're scheduled. And then the reality is all of the productivity is easily monitored through telephony systems and other things like that. So, for anyone out there, it's a brave new world, and the technology exists, and it's really a matter of, putting that together and, maybe bringing someone on board that can either support you from an outsource standpoint or, bring someone into your internal team that has some work at home experience and can help put those best practices into place for the team.
Now, you mentioned some of the cool tools that you're using to help monitor and track this sort of thing. And I'm sure there are a lot of different types of compliance issues, HIPAA, for example. And so many people are scared today of data breaches and all kinds of security measures. When you're working remote, there's got to be tools that are put in place to be able to secure stuff like that. When you get that kind of pushback from either companies or workers, how do you answer that question so that they feel safe and secure when doing remote work?
Yeah, great question. So, one, the vast majority of incidences of fraud do not happen from the person taking your phone calls at the end of the day, right? So, there's a few different statistics out there. One, certainly older people are less likely to commit fraud than younger people, and people that are, I'm going to say, isolated or working from home are also less likely, because what happens sometimes, we saw this in call centers back in a previous life, right? That you've got a bunch of 20 something year olds that are all working together in a call center. And all of a sudden they start to come up with ideas, and that group dynamic can actually drive more fraud than the stay-at-home mom working from home, kind of in the comfort of her own home, right? There's not necessarily a lot of opportunity or motivation there to commit fraud. So, I mean, that's the first one, is you're just kind of starting from a demographic standpoint, and who are you, who are the people at the end of the day taking these phone calls or chats or emails. And so, but to back up a step, what we do for our clients, so we go out and we look for gig workers who have the right professional kind of background. So whether that's healthcare or financial services. And so they're familiar already with HIPAA or PCI or banking standards. And then we put them through, they go through a number of checks. And so the first thing we always do is a KYC identity verification. So that's a know your customer. It's the same standard you do if you were going to open an online bank account. So for us, we want to know that the person is who they say they are, right? That's part and parcel to this being successful, as silly as it sounds. But over COVID, there was so much fraud around unemployment and all these other things that happened that people were, stealing identities, things like that. So that's number one. Number two is, we use a LexisNexis product that actually helps us look at any location masking. It actually looks at their digital footprint. So the
Mm.
computer that they're applying from, it looks to see if that inside the LexisNexis network has any history of fraud, right? So it won't tell us this information directly, but did they apply for a Home Depot credit card fraudulently, right? So LexisNexis has this incredible database that tracks these things. So we get this, the first off was we get this really good picture of a person, both from identity, digital footprint, and then depending on the client and the need, we run different background checks. So whether that's a 10-year look back that does federal, state, county, as well as a drug test and employment and education verification. I mean, we do background checks that are that level for a financial services client. Same thing with a healthcare client. So all of those same standards, those standards don't go away. So they still happen. And then after that, right, then the next question is, how do they connect into a client system so that they can access, the customer accounts? And so that's then done through, a VDI, a virtual desktop that has, basically functionality in it that locks down the computer. And so they have no mechanism to copy, paste, or go back into their own computer from that virtual desktop. So it's a very locked down environment. And then the next layer above that is really around, ensuring that there's masking of account numbers, masking of credit card numbers, personal information, things like that. So again, that the opportunity to commit fraud doesn't really even exist because they don't have access to information that they could use to commit that fraud. So there's layers and layers and layers to make sure that it's successful, and that the people at the end of the day, really don't have either the propensity or the opportunity to be a bad actor.
And that's a lot of measures that are put in place. And that's really good because there's a lot of people who want to get started in this space, but they're gonna come across problems along the way. All these things are little issues that for all intents and purposes, you guys have been solving along the way as
Yep.
you've been doing these things. As problems come up as an entrepreneur, you solve that problem and now it's no longer an issue, which makes it easier for somebody to come on board and say, yeah, this is the team I want to work with. What are some common challenges that you feel either you face when building a remote team or your clients face when building a remote team? How do you help them overcome those common problems?
I think probably the biggest challenge is really what you hit on originally, the perception of productivity. And so, people I think naturally get this idea that if I can't see the person, how do I know what they're doing? And again, there's a lot of really cool cloud-based tools out there, and people are continuing to innovate in this space where there's obviously like a Zoom where you can see everybody, but people are starting to build more tools where you can kind of have a virtual call center floor and everyone's on camera the whole time, but they're still doing their work independently. So there's tools out there like that. For us, I don't necessarily need or want to see everyone. That the joy of working from home is that you don't have to be on camera all the time, right? Or
Right.
presentable. But we build dashboards for our clients that really walk through what the account is doing, how it's performing, those types of things, so that they can see that the productivity is there, the quality is there. Of course, in customer service, there's so many back-end metrics like, a CSAT score, an NPS, right? How likely are you to recommend, this interaction you had, this company, all of those things that help us really measure, are we delivering, what our clients expect us to deliver to their customers? And we get a lot of really immediate feedback if something wasn't delivered properly, someone, customer was unhappy and gave a poor survey score, right? And then we can work with our team to make sure that we, improve on whatever that interaction was.
And improving is exactly what companies want to do anyways. That's the whole reason why they're bringing staff on, is they want to get more efficient. They want to get better at what it is that they do, and they want to grow. But sometimes picking staff and getting people in the right seats can be difficult, and especially if you're doing it remotely. So can you kind of describe how your services can maybe adapt to maybe seasonal growth or growth related demands that companies may have?
Yeah, awesome question. So we love seasonal work. So for us, the gig economy is perfect for seasonal work because there are so many people out there, especially when you think about a retail brand that have, a brand affinity. They love a certain product, they love a certain company, and so they want to work part-time. They want to work on a project basis. And so for us, it's much easier to go out and say, hey, we're looking for lots of people that love, this outdoor brand. And who loves the outdoors, who's excited, passionate to talk about these things. And so then people can opt in and say, hey, I love the outdoors. I use this brand. I'd love to work on this project. And then they can kind of see all of those project requirements, right? So it's, maybe it's a holiday seasonal. They know that it's from, in essence, Black Friday to, the day after Christmas. And, here are the hours of operation that the client's phone lines are open and those types of things. And they can say, yeah, that's a project I'd love to work on. And they understand that it's short term and that's what they're looking for. And so, when you think about a more traditional employee model, people tend to look for longer term things. And so it can be harder to set those expectations properly and find people that are of a high quality, right? That are going to deliver the service you want, that also are going to work on a short-term basis. Whereas the gig economy is full of individuals looking for those types of opportunities.
Yeah, employment can be tough. One of the biggest issues that employers have is finding the right people, because when you hire incorrectly, it's not just the pay that's wrong, but there's also all the training that goes into that person. There's also all that time loss. There's also all the work that could get lost along the way. So how does your team help to select and train individuals that become advocates of that particular company's brand, so that they can avoid some of this turnover and get people in there that meet those descriptions that you're talking about right now, that meet the quality of individual that the company's looking for?
Yeah. So the first thing for us, we actually get about 300,000 applications a year. And
Whew.
so the first step for us is kind of this general bucket of, do they have the right home office, right? You've got to have a closed door, a quiet workplace. The second piece is, do they have the right equipment? They need to have a computer, in some cases, dual monitors, a headset. And then do they have the right internet speed? And so that's kind of the table stakes. So that's the first thing we always look at for, the people that want to work on the Omni platform. And so once they pass that, then there's some other things that are client dependent, right? That, some clients have typing word per minute requirements. Others have, they're looking for, certain tone of voice or things that are going to be a lot of empathy. If it's maybe a healthcare client and you're dealing with individuals in their illnesses and things like that. So then we kind of look for those client specific requirements that the worker would need to have. And so we screen for those on basically a per client or per project basis. And so that's kind of how we kind of take people and we filter them down through the pipeline in terms of, are you going to be a good fit in general based on these requirements? And then what do our clients really need and what are those requirements? And do the individuals have and meet those?
Now, I always heard the saying that facts tell, but stories sell, right? And so the best way to communicate what a good success story is by sharing them. I mean, testimonials work really great. Obviously, we don't have your clients on the show today, but you can tell us a little bit about maybe a success story where you've helped a company make significant progress or improve the customer experience by adding your services.
Yeah, excellent question. So I think, I'll use one. This client provides, non-emergency ride services to adults and children to medical appointments. And so again, it's a high stress thing, right? People need to get to appointments. They're always nervous about that. And if you don't have the mechanism to get yourself there, that adds another layer of complexity. And so, so one of the things that was very, very important to this client was empathy. And so that was something when we went out, we wanted to find, a stay-at-home mom, is a great person to work, to answer those calls and work on that account because they have children, right? They understand the challenges that go into that with trying to navigate, how do you get your child to a medical appointment while going to work and these other things that exist in daily life, or maybe a caregiver to a parent that has the same set of challenges. How do you get your elderly parent to medical appointments? And so there were a few challenges with this client. When they're growing very quickly, as you can imagine, this is a challenge for people broadly. So they're growing quickly. When they originally came to us, they actually only needed about 30 people and then realized that they had far more volume coming in than what they needed. And so we actually ended up adding another 300 people inside of a week and setting up a triage line just so we can get the calls answered, right? We all know as customers, the worst thing is to not be able to talk to someone when you need to. So even
Hmm.
if that person just says, I've heard you, I've taken it down, I'm passing it to the next level, I can't solve your problem right now, but it's going to be solved, right? That feels so much better, as we all know, than just nothing from a company. So we set up a triage line for them to help manage that initial inflow of calls. And then we were able to help, you know, we basically were able to upskill that group, get them into being able to answer the full suite of needs, and then start to optimize their staffing. So one of the things we do that's really unique to other providers out there is we actually build all of our shifts in 30-minute increments. So we don't have 4 hour, 6 hour, 8 hour shift blocks. Everything's in 30 minutes. And those gig workers pick up those shifts in 30 minutes or select them. And so what's super cool is as we start to understand how call volume comes in, we can really optimize how we staff that account. And so in this example, what we started to find was Mondays and Tuesdays were very, very busy, and then it tapers off throughout the rest of the week. So we staff very, very heavy Monday, Tuesday, and our staffing tapers off because again, that works in the gig economy. People aren't looking for 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, where it's very hard to get that flexible staffing. And so what we've been able to do with them is really optimize when the staff works against when the calls come in. So it saves them a ton of money because they don't have people sitting there doing nothing as the week goes on and the call volume is lower. And they don't have excessive hold times early in the week when they didn't have enough staff because the volume was so high. So, we've got so many clients that we've done that exact type of thing for, where they just struggle to optimize staffing against actually when those calls come in because they're working on these fixed, 8 hour shifts, people working 40 hours a week. And the reality is that just doesn't match how a call, how calls or chats or emails come in from customers.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And then when you have a team like yours to come in and kind of help do these kinds of things, you're also collecting data. So you know exactly when the calls are coming in. You know exactly when the
Exactly.
emails are coming in, and that data can help the business owner moving forward to make those kinds of decisions that they need to. But you guys are already helping them with placement for that workflow that's coming in. So in your opinion, what's the future of customer care? Where do you guys see remote work in the future? I feel like the world's getting smaller every day.
I think, well, the future is automation. So the reality is, we all have already seen automation impact the customer care journey in so many ways. I mean, I hardly ever call a customer service line personally, right? I use the
Mhm.
apps. It's like an emergency situation to get me. It's like basically for me, it's like my last resort to pick up the phone and call. But of course, we still have an older generation. My dad, on the other hand, I swear, he calls like 5 numbers a day, right? He loves to call customer service numbers. So, while automation is very much changing this space, we do still have a huge population of people that love to pick up the phone and talk to someone. And so I don't see that going away for a while. The other thing that I do really see happening as time goes on is automation is going to get smarter and smarter, and that's going to continue to pick up more and more complex interactions, right? You're going to be able to do more through your app. You're going to be able to do more through a chat bot, things like that don't require human intervention. But what we're going to see is, again, we've got so much data now that we've never, every day we have more data than we've ever had in the past, right? The data
Mhm.
grows and grows and grows. And so what's going to be really cool is to be able to say, okay, on Monday mornings, we know we get a bunch of this type of interaction, right? Everybody has this question Monday mornings. Automation is able to handle 30% of that. So we know we need to cover 70, the remaining 70% with people. And then that tapers off dramatically. And maybe Monday afternoons, automation can handle 90% of the interactions. And so I see us having this really fluid environment where automation and human interactions become very dynamic. And the reality is the old school model of delivering customer service from, people in 8 hour shifts sitting in a call center in a cubicle cannot keep up with that because you can't adjust quickly enough or fluidly enough to continue to keep up with how automation is going to change each individual company's customer interactions and what those needs are and when those needs exist in a cost effective way. So I continue to see this just marriage of as automation picking things up and humans picking other things up. And it needs to be fluid, or it's going to be very, very expensive and clunky for both the company and the end customer.
Well, as the end customer evolves, the company's got to evolve, and the employment has to evolve. That's just how it works, or how it's going to work. Otherwise, you're going to just fall behind and disappear like a lot of other companies already have.
Exactly.
For businesses looking to transition to a remote customer care model, what do they need to do? How can they get a hold of you? What can they do to maybe get started?
Yeah, I mean, visiting our website's a great place. I mean, we've got so many blogs out there, and we've got a ton of information. I mean, I'm always happy to have a conversation, happy to brainstorm. I mean, I love talking about these things, and one thing that's fascinating about our business is we get to interact with so many different types of companies, right? So I love what you said, right? How do you make money? And so we get to see how so many different companies make money, and fundamentally, customers drive that revenue. So we get to interact with so many different customer types. So for me, I love the opportunity to brainstorm with people, just hear their journey, see where they're at, and if there's a way we can help support that with remote agents, or help provide them some resources to do that internally. We're happy to help, and we're happy to be a resource for companies out there.
Perfect. Website, ladies and gentlemen, scrolling across the bottom is omniinteractions.com, omniinteractions.com. Make sure you guys go over there, check it out. Courtney, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I agree with you, though. This is the future. Things have to change. Automation is going to replace a lot of this stuff. And in the meantime, especially here in the US, hiring abroad and the remote work can save that bottom line so much money. And using a team like yours, you can be sure that it's secure, it's safe, you can monitor, you have good training behind it. So make sure, one more time, ladies and gentlemen, omniinteractions.com is the website. Make sure you guys check that out. Courtney, thank you very much again for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Thank you.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www